Welcome to the Mac Talk podcast. I'm Logan DuPont, and today I had the opportunity to talk to UWO Professor Adam Ochonicky and students Al Brinkman and Gabe Gennet. Let's get ready for a little small talk on Mac Talk. I would like to welcome a UWO Associate Professor of English in the School of Mac and a multi-published author, Adam Ochonicky. Thank you so much for being here today on Mac Talk. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. So the first question I have for you today is what led you to your position at UWO and what university did you attend?
Sure. Well, all that's a bit interrelated. As an undergraduate, I attended St. Louis University, where I was a history and English major, and I studied creative and professional writing as well, which involved taking some classes of communication. My favorite professor there got his degree at UW-Milwaukee, and so I'm like, I got to go follow in his footsteps. So I applied there for graduate school, moved up to Milwaukee in Wisconsin for the first time ever from graduating college, and my PhD program was in English department there, which was also very interdisciplinary. The film and media studies program was housed in English, so I did a lot of work in that subject matter while I was working on my graduate degree, and I taught for the film studies program at UWM for a while. And as I was finishing the degree, right when I was graduating, I was desperately looking for a job, a full-time position somewhere. I applied for a couple spots. Academia is a bit of a nomadic profession where you move around. So in the same week, I had online interviews for positions in Ohio and Arizona, and then I drove up here for an interview at UWO. It ended up working out with UWO, and so I thought I'd rather move 90 minutes away than across the country to Phoenix, and here I am 12 years later.
Yeah, I've got to have that rival school with UW-Milwaukee with your old friend.
It's true.
Yeah. All right. What made you want to pursue a career as a professor?
So pretty early on as an undergraduate, I just knew I wanted to keep learning beyond those 4 years or so. I feel like it really was about sophomore year of college that I just had it in me that I wanted to go on to graduate school and pursue at least a master's, if not a PhD. And so from that point forward, it was really just plotting out what I had to do to be a candidate, to apply for graduate school, and then to really choose what discipline, because again, I was a history and English major, and I was sort of torn between the two disciplines, but I felt like English gave me a little more flexibility and let me pursue a wider array of interests.
All right, awesome. What courses do you teach here at UWO?
I teach a lot of classes here. So this is my 12th year. Through my first 11 years, 22 semesters, I designed and taught 22 different classes for the English major, for the professional writing minor, for the honors college, for the African American studies minor, and even one class for RTF during an odd semester a couple years back. My areas that I teach in are, it's about half dozen or so. So I'll teach within English a lot of literature and film courses. I've taught a graduate and majors survey on the novel. I teach the gen ed surveys for like American literature and for African American literature. In the honors college, I teach specialized seminars, often on media topics. So I team teach a freshman seminar on mediated lives with an RTF professor, Dr. Mike Van Essler. So he and I teach shared units within our various disciplinary backgrounds. So we cover algorithms and AI and that type of content. In professional writing, in particular, I try to emphasize digital literacy. And so helping students to think not just what they can do with digital tools, but the context in which those tools are created and used and the effects on culture and society. I want students to think about the big picture of technological change. And even in professional writing classes, where there's a stronger emphasis on communicating with particular audiences, I still think there's a strong need to understand those bigger frameworks for just who's making the tools that we use and what maybe ethical problems there might be with some of those tools as well. That minor also has an internship component. So along with teaching, I do mentoring work to try to connect students with the Career and Professional Development Office and help English majors and professional writing minors get opportunities to apply this skills and knowledge that they get in our classes beyond the classroom.
All right, that's awesome. Outside of teaching, you have several publications out there to be read. What is your most recent one that you published?
Sure. Well, maybe I'll talk about the one that's forthcoming and should be out this summer. I've got a chapter in an anthology about media and nostalgia. Most of my publications are on either regional topics like the Midwest or nostalgia or some type of media context. And this is about folks who collect physical media, I'm talking like VHS tapes, paperback books, and then post about it on social media. So I have this study of what people in those collector groups do in their posts. And I'm particularly interested in how collectors have this strong sense of space, that there's like an ethics to how they collect, that it's not just going and buying stuff off eBay or other online vendors, but they tell stories about finding things at rummage sales, going to Goodwill and finding things, secondhand resale shops. Like there's a joy to the discovery. So there's this interesting narrative to collecting that I'm writing about within those collector groups. And some of that loops back into some of my classes that I teach, since I often integrate content on nostalgia in some of my classes. I teach some articles about like the Gen Z trend towards physical media and the sort of affection for tactile media objects instead of the, impermanence of streaming content.
Yeah, I might have to indulge one day in that. Do you use any of the publications you've had in the past in any of the courses that you teach?
I feel a bit sheepish about making students read my work, but I definitely draw upon the work that I've done to create those publications when designing classes. There's often a back and forth dynamic between the work that I produce, the scholarship I produce, and the classes that I teach, where a new research project will often lead me to find materials I want to share with students and bring into a course in some unit. And often I might teach content that then leads to a publication, something I hadn't really thought about developing into my own project, and then suddenly becomes something bigger. So I have students in some of my regional classes do like a mapping exercise where we have like an interactive map online. Students have to select, like just in a very basic way, what states they consider to be the Midwest. And then we talk about it. And so now this has led to a couple conference presentations about maps and the meanings of maps and the ways in which understandings of place are shaped and reshaped through the maps we look at, the maps we produce, mapping technologies, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's all very cool. Actually, the meaning of mapping. I need to look into that. Now we're going to move to the more about the English discipline. So what makes the English discipline more unique compared to other areas of the study in the School of Mac?
Sure. For me, English is a very interdisciplinary discipline. And that's one of the things that drew me to it, that it enables me to explore a lot of different interests. And so I think English always has these threads outwards into other disciplines. I would say perhaps of all the Mac disciplines, we're the one that has, kind of feet firmly planted in both Mac, but also the School of Page, since we have strong ties to the African American Studies program and to the Women and Gender Studies program. We have cross-listed faculty, cross-listed classes, that kind of thing. And for me, English, it's not just a skills course, that's our skills discipline, where that's part of it, learning to communicate, learning to write creatively, learning to write professionally, tailoring messages for particular audiences. But it's also thinking about things contextually, thinking about things in the historical or cultural context they were produced, and thinking about connections across areas. So that's a little bit abstract. I'll just share a quick anecdote from my Midwest class where we just read a couple essays by a Wisconsin-born memoirist. So she was writing about going back to like the driftless region in the state and how that small rural area shaped her identity. But then we also read a 19th century story from the 1890s about also small rural Wisconsin. And then we also read a work of political science about the cultural dynamics in rural places and urban places and how that shapes political affiliation in the 21st century. And through this collage of materials, we start to understand a sort of deeper way in which I'd say place shapes identity, both on individual levels, on community levels. And that comes about through thinking about things across disciplinary boundaries, seeing how literature relates to politics or political science and to sociology and all these other fields.
All that jazz. How can students get involved in this discipline?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. We have an English club that meets regularly and has a faculty advisor. That has involved maybe having a planned reading that everyone reads and then comes and talks about. That could be some work of literature. That could be a sort of theoretical or critical essay. We have regular readings, both joint faculty and student readings that occur at the New Moon Cafe downtown. So I think that's really cool to see folks showcase their talents and their skills collectively. It's not just one or the other, it's students collaborating alongside faculty members. Those are a couple ways. We also have the Wisconsin Review, which is a literary journal that students can be involved in. And then again, for the professional writing minor, that comes with a required internship component. So we have connections to the Career and Professional Development Office to help students take their content from the class out into the local community, either if they're from Oshkosh or farther afield.
All right, awesome. How does this discipline help students prepare for future careers after graduation?
Sure. So that's very much in line with what I was just mentioning. I think one of the things that's overlooked about the applicability of English is being aware of context and audience is a very desirable skill set for most organizations and workplaces. Being able to clearly communicate with folks of all different backgrounds, that's something that is in demand even in the AI era. And even if people are using AI tools, there still needs to be the ability to control that output, to make sure that you're using it in a responsible way, in a sensitive way. So I would say that mastery of communication and adaptability of communication is definitely one thing that can be applied in a lot of different fields. We've had students go off and work for insurance companies and for nonprofits and for newspapers. A lot of different options that people have beyond what might be the expectation that students just go to be teachers, which is also a big part of our field, but that's just one trajectory amongst many.
Nice. What are some upcoming events and people should know about?
So this week on Thursday, the 7th, we have one of our student faculty readings at the New Moon Cafe. And then next week, the following Thursday, we have our annual English banquet, which is at the Algoma Club. And this is a celebration of our graduates. So we give little blurbs for all of our graduates, celebrate the work they did here, send them off, but also just a way for us to socialize, get together in a more casual setting outside of the classroom.
All right, nice. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for answering those
Sure.
questions. We're going to take a quick moment away here to look at some of the upcoming events in this month for the School of Mac. And when we return, we'll be welcoming on our student guests, Gabe and Al, and ask some questions about their role in the discipline.
Scoot over.
Yeah. Viewers, join me in welcoming two students who are in class with Professor Ochonicky, Al Brinkman and Gabe Gennet. Welcome to Mac Talk. Al, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking me. Just living the life, living the dream. Gabe, how about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain.
All right, awesome. Excited to be here? Good to hear. Al, we'll start with you. What interested you in the study of Midwestern narratives?
So Midwestern Narrative is actually the third class I have that has been taught by Ochonicky. He recommended me for the class in Intro to Professional Writing, I believe. But before that, I was in Digital and Multimodal Media, which led me to the Professional Writing minor. And I really, really enjoyed both how I'm not somebody who travels much. I stay mostly within the Wisconsin border. So being able to experience both Wisconsin and then the Midwest larger was so beneficial for me because I didn't really understand the ways that the Midwest shapes both like culture largely and also small town communities. So being able to explore those through like literature and through videos and feature length films was so beneficial and really, really good for the way that I experience even the Fox Valley was really nice.
That's awesome. Gabe, how about yourself?
I've always loved stories. I've always loved writing, but I never really explored the Midwest when it comes to literature and narratives and as a whole. So being able to take this class has been an amazing opportunity, and it's been really fun to learn about these authors, stories, even the essays that are presented to us, and what they are all about. It's just really fun to learn about, and I've had a great time with Ochonicky in his class.
It's awesome to hear. Al, how has this class changed or shaped the way that you view different forms of media?
So it's really interesting because I am somebody who has been reading and analyzing media my entire life. I was somebody who got grounded from books instead of video games in elementary school.
That was not me.
So media was something that I was familiar with, but being able to experience the ways media is shaped by things that are familiar to me, because a lot of the times when you're reading books, I feel like at least, I'm reading about New York City, or I'm reading about London, or, you know, a small cottage in the middle of Ireland or something. I'm not reading about the small town in, you know, middle of nowhere, Ohio that nobody's ever heard of. In this case, I think it was Ginsburg.
Anderson?
Yeah.
Winesburg, Ohio? Yeah.
Winesburg, Ohio. Thank you. But no, like, you think nobody cares about Ohio until you read Winesburg, Ohio, and you're like, wait, actually, this is amazing. This is spectacular. This is grotesque. Like, it's so good.
It's awesome. And then, Gabe, how has this changed your way of viewing different forms of media?
It's made it a lot more interesting to look at location when it comes to stories. It's really shaped my understanding more of how location can affect narratives and how they are told, and just the themes that they're allowed to tackle. As strange as it might sound, location really does help better project those themes and ideas, and especially in the Midwest, it's really interesting to see what they've talked about with identity, nostalgia, and just how some things feel stagnant.
Yeah. Midwest is a great place, best place in the country. Now a question for both of you guys. Are there any upcoming projects or previous work that you are proud of and want people to see?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Within Midwest Narrative, I'm currently working on a paper about Midwest narratives and nostalgia, but also looking at the genre of music, Midwest emo, specifically a band called Hot Mulligan and their album You'll Be Fine. That album is heavily based in nostalgia and thoughts about the past and just how life was before. And it's something that really kind of stuck out to me, especially within this class as well, is just how much nostalgia there is within it and how it just feels. And my seminar project, sorry.
Yeah,
And I have a big project for my 481 seminar class for English coming up, where I will be writing about the poet M.S. Merwin and the type of poetry called Japanese death poems, and how the two of them intersect with their poetry and how their ideals kind of overlap with each other.
Oh, that's awesome. It's very beautiful.
So for me, my probably proudest achievement is technically outside of the collegiate setting, but I could not have done it without the collegiate setting. So I, over the summer, was published in a local queer zine called Crispy Zine, or Crispy Zine, depending. And I got a poem published, and they did a whole like writer's piece on both, you know, obviously me, but then also all of the other authors that were featured in the zine. And it was really, really beneficial to be able to understand the ways that I have to communicate the rhetoric that I'm trying to get across with my poetry, with my, biography and everything, that I could not have done it as effectively without like digital and multimodal media and the way that things are going, or like the way that things are getting placed, or with professional writing and the ways that you have to structure biographies and structure these sort of professional writing assignments.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Good for you on that. Now a question for you, Adam. What is something that stands out about not only Gabe and Al, but other students who take courses like these?
Sure. Well, I'm going to echo what both of them said a little bit, because for me, it's when students are applying course content beyond, again, the walls of the classroom is super exciting. So I love seeing students make connections with like things we're reading or watching. And here's the musical genre, Midwest emo, the newest iteration of Midwest emo, that is. And that's novel. And that's important, I think, to see how these works help us to understand the things we might already consume. Again, the cultural environment surrounding us, or with Al utilizing skill sets from a class for this really personal creative project. That's exciting for me to see. So any kind of application of course content beyond the class purview is super cool, I think.
Gotcha. All right. And real quick, what's your guys' like favorite thing about the English in this here at UWO?
My favorite, oh goodness, it's like when somebody asks you your favorite movie and then every movie blanks out. Probably my favorite thing is, I'm going to echo what you said earlier about like the way that you just really enjoy learning and just being able to take so many different classes, because on one hand I'm taking Midwestern narrative where I'm learning about the very niche things in the Midwest, but then things like your seminar, like the seminar class where we're learning about political poetry, and Merwin where he's talking about the Irish potato famine, and having those perspectives, I don't think I would have been able to get those anywhere else.
Okay. All right. I think that is all the time we have. Sorry I couldn't get your guys' answers, but thank you for joining us today, Adam, Gabe, and Al. My name is Logan DuPont, and this has been Mac Talk.